Well, it is universal. Well, that's what's wrong with modern education. The Incredible Hulk, the one we had, was being played by Jake Steinfeld. Body by Jake, bodybuilder to the stars. That guy? Well, Jakey had this little problem with not being the biggest body on the stage. Apparently being green is easier for some people than others. So, Jake bitched to management. So Richard, to whom Jake cleverly referred to as the Tree, had a conference with management. Conference with management says, you know, do what we say or you're fired. But knowing that he had a family to take care of, Richard fell back on his ballet training. And whenever he was on stage with Jake, he would do a little plie. Or to put it another way, Richard is the only guy I know who would literally bend over backwards to accommodate a coworker. Well, obviously that worked. Richard and Jake, they had a relationship that improved greatly, and the shows went smoothly. Now, you got to understand, during these shows, we had tours from all over the world. They really got into the fantasy. They loved the fantasy. Literally almost every day, the Incredible Jake would go off to a little hidden room with one of the tourists, usually female. And later he'd come back with a big smile on his face, and so with a little tourista, usually along with some green paint. But Richard was a family man. And as heaven is my witness, I never saw him go back into that room. Ever. Once or twice I did see some green handprints on his ass. Later on, Richard and I wound up working literally all over the world. We were supervising foreign versions of American films for DreamWorks and Warner Brothers and Universal. And we would communicate. Email was a wonderful thing. And we would compare notes from where we were and what was going on. And I have to tell you, the adventures that man would get into. Oh man, the yachts, the parties, the crazed social world in all those major European capitals, as well as some of the low-budget pits where American movies get dubbed into other languages. So we compare notes about the places we're working. And I mean, this man was a one-man goodwill ambassador for the U.S. I learned. Did you know that if you speak slowly and loudly enough, those stupid foreigners will understand? Local customs, Richard embraced them like a native. Like the time he went into a classy European casino, and he set them straight. I mean, you know, real casinos, American casinos, we don't charge you admission to come in so we can steal your money. What's the matter with you? And the time the studio host took him out to a very expensive meal at a fancy restaurant. You know where I'm going with this? I mean,
I don't.
Oh, you don't. Well, his host took him there, and they proudly served him the specialty of the house, what they called the best part of a sheep. It ain't a lamb chop. It ain't a leg of lamb. It's sort of in between. Oh, yeah. I mean, I've heard of sheep dip. Whole new definition of ramrod, if you know what I mean. Ketchup on that, Richard?
No.
No, okay. Okay, seriously. I've had more shared experiences, hetero, and my life is really much fuller because of it. I beat him up because I love him like a brother. And brothers play rough. Doesn't mean I don't care. I do care, and I do love you, Richard, and I always have. Forgot.
We forgot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Best show ever. With Michael McConaughey as the narrator, I'd like to have. Yes. You know, ladies and gentlemen, that Richard, God, he's got animal magnetism, doesn't he? All the women know it. The only guy I know when he goes to the zoo, he has to buy 2 tickets, one to get in and one to get out. To give you a rim shot. I never forget when I first met Richard, you know, being a wisecracking guy, I said, "Hey, wow, you're so tall. What's the weather like up there?" He went, "Rain." And ladies, yeah, I know this is probably hard to guess. You know, there's one part that Steve didn't tell you about the stories of Las Vegas. Richard and I went one time without Steve, and we stayed at the Luxor in the pyramid, actually. When we came back, Steve Kramer asked me, "So, how was it?" I said, "Oh, we had a great time." He went like, No, I mean, how was it? You were in there with Richard, right? I said, "Yeah." "Well, did you see it?" "Did I see what?" "Oh, did you see it?" I'm like, "My God, Steve, I wasn't looking at that." But I know that Richard is reputed to be very well endowed. On a recent trip to New York to see his marvelous son, who's on Broadway in the Spider-Man musical. On that recent trip to New York, King Richard, yeah, he proved it. The National Enquirer just came out with an article. He's reported to be having an affair with the Lincoln Tunnel, ladies and gentlemen. Lincoln Tunnel. As Ruben Veloso, someone we worked with, a nice Argentinian man, once said of Richard, "You know, when it comes to show business, you know, Richard doesn't know the meaning of the word fear. But then again, he doesn't know the meaning of a lot of words." As Buddy Hackett once said about Richard, "I like Richard's philosophy. Richard goes with the flow." That's right. He's a bedwetter. I once asked a treetop lover the difference between kinky and perverted. Richard said to me,
"Buddy, kinky is when I'm tickling my wife's ass with a feather. Perverted is when I use the whole chicken."
How do you follow that?
I have no idea.
As the token Brit on the roasting panel, it falls to me to talk about one of Richard Epcar's greatest obsessions. Richard Epcar. Sorry, I mean, of course, someone who Epcar himself calls the greatest hero ever to wear a tuxedo. Richard Epcar. No, Bond, James Bond. Sorry, Richard, of course, has been a fan of Bond for years, and him and James share a lot in common. I mean, like Roger Moore, Richard Epcar is tall. Like Sean Connery, Richard Epcar is dark. And like Daniel Craig, well, he's tall. Actually, I think Richard probably shares more in common with 2 other famous Bonds, George Lazenby and Timothy Dalton. Because no one remembers their performances either. Now, as a young boy, his obsession started very young. He used to run around the house in his tuxedo patterned pajamas. And would often spend hours alone in his bedroom playing with Walter, his peepee. Walter Peepee Craig. I'm so sorry, Richard. Of course, later in life, Richard met his funny fanny, Muddy Penny, his octopusy, his pussy galore, his lovely wife, Ellen. Yay! Yay! It's a beautiful time.
Although he did complain to me on the golf course the other day that it has been a long time since he had a Blofeld. Now, could Richard Epcar be James Bond? Well, I don't know, but I've asked a special guest to help us and find out, and he's going to read a small passage from Russia with Love by Ian Fleming. Good evening, everybody. As the tall, dark, handsome spy entered the casino bar, he honed in on the gorgeous blonde almost immediately. Effortlessly gliding onto a stool next to her, he turned his powerful gaze to the bartender and ordered a vodka martini. Shaken, not stirred. He turned to the flawless creature perched like a puma behind him. With one hand on his weapon, he leaned seductively towards her and whispered in her silken shell-like ear, saying only, "Hey, buddy." So no, I don't think Epcar will ever be Bond, and sadly, he's missed the one crushing feature. Bond is very sadly very British. So stick to being one of the finest voice actors I know, and a great friend and a generous, generous man. I love you, man.
Wow. She said, he's terrible. Why did they ask him to do it? He's awful. How big?
A special video.
Oh, a special video.
Special video.
That's what I was told.
Oh, a special video.
Oh, actually, we're going to have to quickly go through what we showed earlier.
Oh, we can go through what
Deep in the heart of Epcar, who wait for Burbank. A lot of hugging. A little pussy.
How's it going? Happy roasting. I couldn't think of anything good to say about you except the fact that you're fat and old and ugly. Just got something else to say to you.
Hey Richard, I concur with everything that your son just said, and you made my spidey senses tingle. I don't like that. I'm gonna kick your ass!
I never liked you. When I was a kid, when I was an adult. Thanks a lot for being such a jerk.
Nasty.
Hey Richard, happy roasting. I just wanted to say, fuck you.
Those bastards.
Love you, boss.
That was Richard's wonderful son, Jonathan, appearing on Broadway, as we said, and also opening for YouTube with their band Carney about a month ago. So as you can see, the Epcar family is very well connected in showbiz. As a matter of fact, a producer friend of Ellen's invited Richard and Ellen to a fancy Beverly Hills costume party just during Halloween here. Ellen, of course, dressed as the Black Swan. Beautiful outfit. When they got ready to leave for the party, Richard showed up at the door wearing nothing but a pickle jar on his cock. So, you know, Ellen asked him, is this your costume? What are you dressed as?
Can't you tell, baby? I'm a fireman. Break the glass, pull my knob, and I'll come as fast as I can.
Richard has a lot of respect for the law. One night, after a big night at Pepito's, or the Pepinos, that place? Piero's. 37 drinks later, this policewoman pulled over Richard after a wild night of drinking. She politely asked him to step out of his car, so of course he did. She then informed Richard, anything you say can and will be held against you.